So I did my paper on another paper about psychiatric disorders among sex offenders. So on to the authors. Well, I actually had 3 different authors, and their names were Youngwei Chen, Chaoyang Chen, and Daisy L. Hung. Now on to the actual study itself. So the background was that the research was conducted because they wanted to see how common psychiatric disorders were among sex offenders. Now, most of the experiments similar to theirs have only been conducted in the United States or Europe, so they were actually the first ones to do a study like this in Taiwan. So, why did they do this study? Again, they wanted to see how common psychiatric disorders were among sex offenders, but again, specifically in Taiwan. Now, they also included data about criminal history, but that has so much data that I can't explain it. So how did they conduct this experiment? Well, out of all the sex offenders in the Taipei prison, which are about 1,347, they selected 5% out of the 1,347 by using a random sample generator. So out of the 5%, they looked at their records for any mental illnesses, and they also interviewed them using the DSM manual to also diagnose them with any mental illnesses. So what was the outcome? Well, about 69% met criteria in Axis 1 and about 60% in Axis 2, as you guys can see by the papers that I provided you. That there are charts of Axis 1 mental illnesses and Axis 2 mental illnesses. So, on to my discussion. They had many strengths and weaknesses, and some of the strengths were that the publication date was actually last year, so it wasn't published in 1960, something like that, so the data is actually pretty current. The Taipei prison actually has 1/3 of all sex offenders in Taiwan, so that's a big strength because the bigger the population, that means the more diverse the sample will be, and which also means a more general overview of the population itself. They also used a random sample, which reduces biases, which is always a big strength, and they also used some very, very, very in-depth data, and they also provided easy-to-read charts, which hopefully you guys would agree with me. Another strength that I did not list on here was that they got their demographics from their record as well as interviewing them with the DSM manual, which everybody knows the DSM manual. It's a very, very popular book in psychology. So, on to the weaknesses. Well, all the participants were male. If it would have been female, who knows that the data might have changed. You never know. That females may have had a more common mental illness than males, and that would have changed their data significantly. Also, they might have diagnosed them wrong, and that happens all the time. Or the prisoners could be lying in their interviews. Maybe if they would have based their data on their observations as well, it would have made their own data stronger. So, in the paper, they did not discuss about the questions that they asked the sex offenders, and they didn't say if they were open-ended questions, yes or no questions, and so I feel like that could have changed the way they diagnose the sex offender as well. So that's my presentation. Thank you.